I hope you can see my screen. Do you see the agenda I'm sharing?
Yes.
Okay, great. So welcome everyone to this first meeting of the joint working group between the NETSOB and GLOSOLAN on soil biological analysis. My name is Filippo Benedetti and I work at the Global Soil Partnership of FAO. And together with me today, my colleague Rosa Cuevas will coordinate this meeting. Who is here today? We have people from two technical networks of the Global Soil Partnership. These are some are from GLOSOLAN, the Global Soil Laboratory Network, and some are from NETSOB, the recently established international network on soil biodiversity. I will go briefly to the agenda, and then we can give the floor to the chair of the two networks, to the chair of GLOSOLAN and to the chair of the working group 1 of the NETSOB for the opening remarks. We will present the tasks of this working group, so why it was established, basically what are the tasks, what are the expectations of the activities we may implement together. George will briefly talk about the launch of a global survey on soil biological analysis in the laboratory. Then we will present the areas of work of this working group. Then we will briefly talk about the SOPs, the standard operating procedures. This will be we'll have a brief introduction about how GLOSOLAN used to harmonize SOPs so far. Then we will present more what have been done about soil biological analysis, so SOPs on soil biodiversity and soil biological analysis. Then some colleagues will present SOPs on meso and macrofauna, and then we will talk together and discuss about which SOPs we may harmonize in this year, basically all together. But I will go more in details during this item. Then we'll talk about capacity building and awareness raising material, also part of the activities that we may implement within this working group. And then we will talk about when all these activities may be implemented. So without any further ado, I will give the floor to maybe ladies first. So to Miriam Mostinelli, the chair of the Global Soil Laboratory Network. So Miriam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Filippo. Dear colleagues, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It depends on where you are. As chair of GLOSOLAN, it is an honor for me to greet and welcome you to this meeting and this joint working group between GLOSOLAN and NETSOB. First of all, I would like to thank you for your interest you have shown in being part of this joint working group and in contributing to the task ahead. GLOSOLAN was established in 2017 to build and strengthen the capacity of soil testing laboratories as a response to the need to deal with methodological dispersion and of the analytical results. Soil is a highly complex system characterized by different chemicals, physicals, and biological processes, influenced by diverse environmental and management factors. That is why the data must be reliable and also comparable. Not having harmonized analytical data becomes a problem when we need to summarize and analyze the information to understand soil processes, assess the impact of management, and also to make decisions to preserve its health within the framework of the International Sustainable Development Agenda. Today, 5 years later, GLOSOLAN has grown a lot, not only in the number of laboratories and people who participate, around 800 labs operating in more than 150 countries, but it has also grown in terms of the topic it covers. Depending on the type of analysis predominant in soil laboratories, GLOSOLAN initial task focuses on the harmonization of chemical soil analysis methodologies. Then we began to working with physical analysis methodologies. And later, during 2021, we began to focus on biological analysis with the harmonization of soil respiration rate, microbial biomass, and some science protocols. However, in this field, we don't have the same critical mass that we have in other areas. And that critical mass is concentrated in NETSOB. So it's very important to add capabilities. From GLOSOLAN, we can add experience in harmonizing methodologies, in internal and external controls of the quality of the results, in training, and also in the management of various aspects of the laboratories. From NETSOB, you can contribute with your experience and knowledge in biological and biochemical analysis of the soil. And you can share the interpretation and evaluation of this type of parameters. And of course, inform your harmonization priorities. Together, we can strengthen knowledge about the soil and its biodiversity and contribute to the development of internationally accepted biological indicators, to a sustainable use of the soil and the adoption of good practices that improve the availability of and safety of food. Overall, we can avoid duplication of efforts, I think. So once again, I thank you for your interest and your decision to contribute to this work. I hope that they will be fruitful and that will be successful in the activities ahead. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Miriam, for your nice words. I think you really gave a nice overview of what are the tasks and why this joint working group is needed. And I will now give the floor to Mr. George Brown from Embrapa, that is the Vice Chair of NETSOB for Working Group 1.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here as well. I would like to mirror the words of Miriam. It's a pleasure to be working with you and to be able to have this opportunity today to share some of the experiences which we have obtained over the years working with soil biodiversity, and how that can in effect create some synergies for GLOSOLAN and the opportunities to work together and promote biological observations and measurements throughout the world in laboratories all over the world if possible. And all of this aiming towards strengthening the sustainable use and conservation of soil biodiversity. I'm going to briefly share my screen here because I think it's important to introduce what is the International Network on Soil Biodiversity, and I hope you can see that now. Can all of you see that? Yes, okay. So the International Network on Soil Biodiversity was launched this year. It's a joint GSP, FAO, network. It includes people from various countries all over the world. We are over 800 members now in NETSOB. With 4 main working groups. We have a website which I'm sure you can go to and find more about the International Network on Soil Biodiversity. It's hosted on FAO, and its main goal, as I said, is to promote the sustainable use and conservation of soil biodiversity. So we have 4 working groups, of which I will just briefly go through the working group 1, which is on measuring, monitoring, and assessing soil biodiversity, of which I'm the vice chair, together with Carlos Guerra, and then 4 other colleagues from Australia, Kenya, Greece, and the USA. This is a scientific committee which is working together to achieve several objectives, but mainly focused right now on the last one here, which is the guidebook on measuring, assessing, and monitoring soil biodiversity, which in a sense is aimed at helping to implement the Global Soil Biodiversity Observatory, the GLOSOB. So this group of experts is working together with other working groups to implement and coordinate the GLOSOB, which we hope will be launched later this year. And in a sense, to provide the expert knowledge needed to make support adequate decision-making, strengthen knowledge on soil biodiversity, contribute to the use of biological indicators and the methods for evaluating those across the world, to facilitate then this monitoring, to know what is the status of biodiversity currently and what are the future perspectives. And of course, one of the main goals is also to identify knowledge gaps and increase cooperation in soil biodiversity research. So that's the NETSOB, and that's why we believe we have knowledge and experience that we can contribute to helping GLOSOLAN objectives. And that's where I'll stop for the introduction. I thank Filippo and Rosa and all of you again for being here and allowing us to have this opportunity to interact. And I hope it's a good and fruitful meeting. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, George. I think we can proceed unless Rosa wants to introduce yourself, but I think you can do it even during your presentation later. Normally, the next item should be presented by my colleague Lucrezia Caon, who is the coordinator of GLOSOLAN, the Global Soil Laboratory Network. Unfortunately, she's sick, so she asked me to present on her behalf. So I'm going to share the presentation on her behalf. Just a second. I hope it is visible. Well, this is the brief presentation just to provide you an overview of the tasks of this working group and who is inside this working group. Basically, George already mentioned it, and Miriam as well. Just to tell you again why a working group, why we need this working group. We need to join the force on these two networks on what concerns our common field of interest, because as you can see, GLOSOLAN is mainly taking care of analysis of soil samples, so soil analysis, while NETSOB is focusing on soil biological parameters. So as we both are looking for these two topics together, we should work together on the analysis of soil biological parameters. This was a rather straightforward process for us, and therefore we endorsed this proposal during the 5th GLOSOLAN meeting in November 2021. And this proposal to establish this joint working group with experts from both networks was also shared with NETSOB during its first meeting in December, and then later in, was it in February, I guess, the meeting of the working group 1. So we launched a call among experts from both networks, and we group them together, and you are all here. The goal is to indeed join the force, as I mentioned, to share the knowledge among experts on these two topics, which basically is one main topic, so the analysis of soil biological parameters again, and fill the gap between researchers and laboratories. Who are the members of this working group? We have 61 experts from both NETSOB and GLOSOLAN. These are from all over the world. As you can see on the right, we have a graph from the regional distribution of the members. We have a rather good gender balance, and they are from different type of institutions, let's say, mainly from university and research institutes, but we also have someone from private sectors and governmental agencies. I want to close this very brief introduction just to briefly reiterate and stress again what is the mission of this working group. This working group was established to decide which SOPs should be harmonized by GLOSOLAN, and SOPs are standard operating procedures, but we will talk about this soon. This working group was established also to lead the harmonization process of these SOPs. So to really proceed with the harmonization to lead the process of the harmonization. But again, all this process will be presented in the next items. We would like to build the capacity of soil laboratories in performing soil biological analysis, because we found out that less than half of soil laboratories operating worldwide actually perform this kind of analysis. So we should support them in basically starting analyzing these kind of parameters, and also raise the awareness on the importance to determine soil biological parameters. So we should not only build the capacity, but also highlight why it is important to do so. Yeah, this is just a very brief introduction, basically, on what Miriam and George already presented. And just to stress again, what is the purpose of this working group? And just let me go. I don't know if there are already questions at this point. Otherwise, we may proceed to the next item. And see, and again, you can raise your hand or write in the chat in case you have comments on or questions. This again was just a brief introduction on why we are here, basically, and why we reached this point. And I will now give the floor again to George to present a nice initiative about an online survey. So George, the floor is yours.
Thank you again, Filippo. I hope you can see the slides. Please let me know, because I can't see any of you.
Yes, we can see.
Great. Okay, excellent. Thank you again. Actually, I will be presenting briefly two activities which NetSob has been developing lately. One of them is further along than the other one, but I'll start with the one that's not so far along, which is the guidelines book, and then I'll speak briefly about the global survey. I didn't present myself earlier. I'm George Brown. I work at Embrapa Forestry. It's in southern Brazil. I also teach at the Federal University of Paraná, and my specialty is mainly soil macrofauna, but I've interacted with people working in all sorts of aspects related to soil biodiversity, mainly in Latin America, but also in other countries around the world. As I said, I'm vice chairing NetSob Working Group 1. And the main activity that this working group has developed so far, which is still in the process of developing, is the guidebook that I mentioned, which will be proposing standard methods to analyze, measure, assess microorganisms, microbial diversity, fauna diversity, and functional measurements, importance of soil function. And therefore, in this way, we believe we will be able to support the establishment of monitoring sites across the world where soil biodiversity will be measured and assessed and monitored using standard methods. And so the GLOSOP. And just very briefly, what this guidebook will include. Basically, part 1 and 2 is introducing the reasoning behind the need for such a guidebook and how to implement monitoring programs and the strategies needed to develop these. And then the session 3, 4, and 5 is basically chapters on how to do this for microbes, for fauna, and then for functional measurements associated with soil quality and soil health. And then the last session is how to go about doing this and establishing a monitoring network across the world in support of GLOSOP. So we have this, in the third session, we have chapters on microbial parameters, assessing microbial diversity, which include bacteria, archaea, mycorrhizal fungi, other fungi, viruses, lichens, and protists, which are currently not part of any of the GLOSOLAN methods. We also have the session 4, which is basically measuring fauna from microfauna to mesofauna to macrofauna, and methods which have been extensively used across the world for various taxa in each of these main groups. And then eventually how to also assess dwelling vertebrates. So dwelling vertebrates, none of these are currently also part of any GLOSOLAN standard methods. Finally, we have the functional measurements, which basically how to assess soil quality using various methods such as microbial biomass and respiration of soilosms, which yes, are currently part of SOP activities of GLOSOLAN, which will be talked about today. And then these are the ones which are also related to microbial or fauna activities in soils, which are also not part of GLOSOLAN methods, but some of them have been already standardized, or there are standard methods available in the literature for these. So let's go to the second point, and many of you might have received an email looking like this, which is the invitation to reply to a global biodiversity survey, soil biodiversity survey, which was also developed as part of NETSOB activities. And basically the main reason for this is to identify the stakeholders, the people, the actors involved in soil biodiversity work, who's doing what, where, and how. So far, we've had 2,200 responses, so it's doing well. And we hope that by the beginning of next week, we might have 2 or 3 times that in order to then go ahead and analyze these responses. And I'll go through briefly some of the questions now that have been proposed regarding methods in this, just to give you an idea in case you haven't seen this survey, in case you haven't answered it, or in case you didn't answer particular parts of the survey, which are geared more towards people working with microbes, or people working with fauna, or people working with other aspects of soil biodiversity. So you may not have seen the whole survey, but there are within the survey several aspects which should help us identify who is doing what, where, and how. So it includes questions on methods related to culture-dependent and independent methods for studying soil microbes, for studying microfauna, mesofauna, and macrofauna, various extraction methods, and indirect and direct sampling methods. So here are just some examples of some of the microbial methods for culture-dependent microbial diversity. And so there's basically some of the main methods which are used, and some of the apparatus or some of the platforms which are used to do that. So some of the various sequencing or other techniques which are support the study of microbial diversity, and then focusing then on culture independent, mainly molecular methods. So then against fingerprinting, metaproteomics, genomics, transcriptomics, arrays, qPCR, that sort of thing. And the most common methods of actually going about doing those, and some of the techniques which are used to support the determination of microbial diversity in soils. So which platforms do you use? And then what are the aims? Which markers do you use? So these are all, of course, many of them standard, but there are always the option of people providing other in information so that we can know what else people are doing, which might not be the most common of the methods which are out there, or that sort of thing. And then, of course, as we go into now some of the functions or some of the other aspects related to microbial diversity, so root infection, colonization, glomalin, direct microscopy, fish, spore observations or decomposition measurements, tea bag, litter bag, etc. And then the stuff which is also already part of GLOSOLAN, but the respiration, for instance, and then microbial biomass, and then how is it done? Is it fumigation incubation, fumigation extraction, SIR, etc. So these will help us then identify across the world which are the main methods that are used, which are the people and the institutions that are using these, And this should also help support us in determining what can be done and where in support of GLOSOLAN activities. Finally, some more functional measurements again related to now enzymes or microbial activity. So various other measurements which are used like gas emissions, mineralization, nitrification potential, etc. And the various enzymes here on the left, which are the ones that are most used and by whom and where. And then, of course, we now go to the soil fauna methods. So, okay, direct and indirect extraction methods, of course, Burleys, Kenson, pitfalls, Winklers, and then what are some of the main references or methods that can be supported and used perhaps by people throughout the world. And, oh, this is really difficult to see, but then here on the left-hand side, sorry, this pasting did not work very well, but it's related to microfauna, so nematodes and rotifers and tardigrades and so forth. And then some of the main references related to microfauna. And I see some important synergies here as we work together to identify then which are the main methods then, and then the regions of use. There might be regions that are preferring certain methods, sometimes due to infrastructure or due to just historical reasons of the people where they got trained and what methods were used when they were doing their graduate degrees, and then they go home and they continue using those, that sort of thing. And then, of course, some of the potential contributors, which we can call upon to help with the standard methods, with the SOPs, with the capacity building in laboratories, and also perhaps even the elaboration of videos and that sort of thing. So I see that we have several things that are going on with NETSOB, which will definitely help contribute to some of the work with GLOSOLAN. And so I call upon you who are the experts who are in this meeting and other colleagues who are not here, who couldn't make it, to help support these activities in as much as possible. So thank you for your attention. And that's what I wanted to share for now. Thanks.
Sure. I think everyone here received the link to the survey. If not, please let us know in the chat, so we'll make sure that we will share the link to access the survey with you. And I kindly ask you to complete the survey because, as George mentioned, this information will be really useful for both networks and for this joint working group as well. I think the next item is with you, Rosa, so I will give the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Filippo. Hello, everybody. Thank you for assist to this important first NETSOB and GLOSOLAN joint working group. My name, as Filippo mentioned, is Rosa Cuevas, and I'm working for the Global Soil Partnership. And I am also coordinator of the International Network on Soil Biodiversity, NETSOB. I will share with you the screen. Sorry for not using my camera, but I have internet issues and it's better not to use. Give me 1 second. Okay, can you see, Filippo?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so this item, it's about the working group areas of work. As Filippo mentioned, you might receive some information regarding with the different areas of work to work in this network. I mean, with these areas of work, or in this case, groups of biodiversity. But first of all, I only wanted to remind you about the International Network on Soil Biodiversity, but I will go very fast because I believe my colleague George explained great. And only I wanted to tell you about the main objectives of the network to bring all experts, of course, biodiversity experts and initiatives associated to go together in order to become the people or the human talent to contribute to the implementation of this important initiative, the Global Soil Biodiversity Observatory that George just explained, and also tell you that we have 894 members in this network, which is a very, very good signal. There's a lot of interest. And we have here a graph in the left side with the percentage associated with each working group. We are part of working group 1, as mentioned by George, about measuring, assessment, monitoring soil biodiversity. And here is a graph of the structure of the network composed by a NETSOB board, including important bodies as the GSBI, the Global Soil Biodiversity Initiative, the Convention on Biological Diversity, of course, the chair of this network, the ITPS chair, and the coordinator of the network. And also each working group is composed of a vice chair. In this case, for this working group 1 is George, then an alternate for this working group, it's Carlos Guerra, and a scientific committee that we defined our last meeting, as you I hope so in the meeting. And finally, in this specific case, we have a joint working group between the two, between these two important networks, GLOSOLAN and NETSOB. Philippe already mentioned all the objectives of this joint working group, and here we have a few graphs regarding the representation of regions and also the gender balance. As you can see here, we have 63 members, and also I wanted to show you the number of members in each group areas or groups of microbes and fauna. As you can see here, from these 63 people, we have 20 people interested or with expertise in microorganisms, 0 people for microfauna, one person for mesofauna, and 2 people for macrofauna. And I don't know if you can see here. I cannot move this, but yeah. Also 9 people for or with several expertise, but I believe that we should corroborate this. I mean, with expertise with, I don't know, for example, microfauna and microbes, or both, or all, I mean, all the groups. And also 32 people that didn't gave us their expertise. For that reason, it's important to define this. And also I wanted to show you I mean, we don't have a balance in that sense, right? And we need to strengthen the other groups, basically, because we have a lot of people with expertise and interest in microorganisms. And finally, this is very quick presentation. The way forward is to define the work areas in the different working groups. With the, I think in this case, Filippo, if I am not mistaken, we need to try to define which persons are interested in the different groups of microbes, or in the group of microbes and in the different groups of fauna, and yeah, try to come with the final members in this case. I think this is all from my side. And I don't know if we can share, Filippo, the Excel, the online Excel sheet, or
Yeah.
open the floor in order to receive from the participants the sorry, I'm so sorry, my phone is
basically, yeah, let me stress again this point. When some of you, most of you, basically, when you register to this joint working group, you express your interest to work within one of these groups or more than one of these groups. So microbes, microfauna, mesofauna, and macrofauna. We should now, basically, the goal now is to divide people into these areas of work in order to establish like sub-working groups, like and know that if, for instance, we will work on mesofauna, we can rely on a group of people that will be involved in that activity. Can be SOP, writing standard operating procedures, can be organizing a webinar on the measurement of microfauna, can be write some training material on mesofauna, depending on the different activities. But would be nice to have to know in which of these, let's say, areas of work you would like to be involved with. So some of you already provide this information in the when you register to this to the network. Some of you didn't. So I don't know how do you want to proceed. If some of you wants to express your preference in the chat, or you prefer to follow up by email, we can do in both ways. Or if you didn't express any preference, you can already start writing in the chat your name and in which of these four areas of work you would like to be involved. So again, microbes, microfauna, mesofauna, and macrofauna. In order to really to follow up them by sub working groups by mails on the different activities that we will talk on during this meeting. So it seems someone is starting to answer. You can continue writing in the chat all your preferences. I will take note of this. We have a database with all your names, and we will write next to you your preference in terms of which areas of work you want to work on according to your expertise, of course. I know many of you are from have a background in microbes, and we work on that. But it would be nice if some can work also on micro, meso, and macrofauna, because indeed we should work also on that, as highlighted by Rosa. I see many of you are writing. I encourage you and kindly ask you to continue writing in the chat your preference, and we will take note of that. Maybe we can go forward and pass to the next item while you are writing your preference. Next one indeed is now we will talk more about what are the activities of this working group, the different activities we may work on. We'll start one maybe by the most important activity. It is the harmonization of standard operating procedures. We will first talk about how SOPs are harmonized by GLOSOLAN, on which SOPs we harmonized so far regarding soil biological parameters, and then we will give the floor. We will give the floor to two experts who worked on SOPs on meso and macrofauna, and then we will decide together which SOPs we will work on during 2022. Basically, this was also why this working group was established, because GLOSOLAN asked NETSOB to support and decide together which SOPs we will work on. But first, let me share with you my presentation. I will briefly talk. Yes.
May I very fast? Sorry.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you, Filippo. Yeah, first of all, a big apology. My cell phone was ringing and I couldn't. Okay. Yeah, I only wanted to tell you that it's very important, as I mentioned, to strengthen all the groups. And if you know people who wants to join to this joint working group, especially to provide expertise in or for fauna, basically for micro, meso, and macrofauna, we will really appreciate if you can give us the contacts. And yeah, I wanted to tell you that, because I think it's very important, Filippo, and we should work in that sense also. Thank you very much.
No, indeed, thanks again, Rosa. This is a really good point. As I was mentioned, this is also what we face in GLOSOLAN. We have many experts that are on soil microbes, but indeed we need to work also on the fauna parameters. But let me first share my screen. Let me know if you see the presentation.
Yes.
Is it visible? Yeah, okay. I will, before giving the floor to Miriam Sinelli and to the other experts on the SOPs on fauna, I will briefly explain you what are SOPs, basically, that we are measuring these things many times, but basically maybe it's better to explain you first what are SOPs and how we got this document, how these documents are harmonized. Basically, SOP means Standard Operating Procedure. Is a document that is used by laboratory staff members to implement the procedure to determine a soil parameter according to different methods. I think you're familiar with this kind of documents. Maybe you are not all familiar with those that GLOSOLAN produced. GLOSOLAN as a global soil laboratory network has many different areas of work. We work on laboratory equipment, on quality control and quality assurance, on laboratory health and safety, and also, of course, on soil analysis, on soil spectroscopy, on dry chemistry. And we produce this kind of document, the SOPs, that are globally harmonized, meaning that these are made based on a consensus that is achieved on a global basis from all regions. These documents are very important because as you may know, they ensure the replicability of the measurement, because if you follow the same procedure, you can perform the measurement different times using the same setup in terms of equipment, in terms of amount of reagents and soil used, in terms of time, and so on. And also the traceability of data is ensured. All these documents harmonized by GLOSOLAN are available for free on GLOSOLAN website. You just click on soil analysis and there is a subpage on standard operating procedures. You can choose the parameter and check these SOPs, which are basically step-by-step instructions that provide you an overview of each step of the procedure, from sample preparation up to quality assurance, quality control, including also aspects on laboratory health and safety, and so on. How we reach this document? I will briefly talk about the way GLOSOLAN harmonized SOPs so far, because we think we should adapt this procedure to the harmonization of soil biological parameters procedure. So first, How we decide which SOP should be harmonized? There is a discussion going on within the regional networks. GLOSOLAN is structured in different regional soil laboratory networks, also called RESOLAN. And this, during the annual meeting, they discuss on the procedures they are more interested on, like, to work on. And their proposals are shared during GLOSOLAN annual meeting. So GLOSOLAN members make a decision on which SOPs should be included in the network work plan for the next year. Then working groups are established, one working group for each SOP. This working group is made up by experts from all regions. One is nominated as global leader, meaning that will be the one moderating the activity, and some experts are composing the review panel. So a group of people that will review the SOPs once finalized. The working group prepare what is called the matrix. This matrix is basically an Excel file that reports all the steps of the procedure. So again, from sample preparation to quality assurance and interpretation of results. And this Excel file, I bring here an example from the matrix we launched last year on bulk density. So you see, it's an Excel file made up by different columns. Each column is a step of the procedure. So amount of sample, methodology, time, and so on, up to the references. And this Excel file was shared among all GLOSOLAN members all over the world, and they fill horizontally, like in the rows, the procedures adopted in the lab, and the results. So these Excel files filled by laboratories are collected and harmonized on the regional basis. So from the lower line in this graph, you can see that we collect, once we share the matrix with all the labs, so up to now the network counts more than 800 members. So you have to imagine 800 matrix sent to all laboratories. Once we receive the methodology currently adopted in the laboratories, we harmonize these methodologies into what we call regional matrices, and the regional matrices are then harmonized into a global one, into a global matrix. So this is why I'm talking about globally, like a global consensus, a global harmonized SOPs, because these are really based on information collected from all regions and from all laboratories making up that region. Once we have a global matrix, so a big Excel file basically with the procedure, we transform the matrix into a text. We convert the information in the Excel file into a text following a specific template. And these are reviewed by the review panel and the GLOSOLAN technical committee, and we publish the SOP. And also these documents are translated into different languages. We aim to make all GLOSOLAN SOPs available in all UN official languages, meaning that English, Arabic, Spanish, Russian, French, and Chinese. These are some examples of the SOPs we already have published on GLOSOLAN website that are available in different languages. And as you can see, you can both download the procedure, so the PDF file to be adopted in your lab, and you can also watch some training videos that have been made about this method, so to help you to implement these SOPs. And then the last step is to collect information and to publish information on the sustainability of methods, because we would like to promote the transition toward more sustainable methodologies for soil analysis. This is done by publishing information about different categories, what we call sustainability of methods. So basically we take into account the risk for human health related to the use of chemicals and to the overall implementation of the procedures done by the laboratory staff members, the environmental risk related to the disposal of the reagents, so the waste disposal of the samples of the reagents used in the procedure, the level of technology required to perform the test, and the average duration. And if possible, we add also information on the global price for each procedure. But the goal is to compare different procedures. So from this table, you can see that we have different methodologies to harmonize, for instance, to measure, to determine soil nitrogen. And you can assess, for instance, that biomass is related to a lower risk for human health rather than Kjeldahl. So you can really, we provide this table to, and it's like a tool for labs to choose which methodologies to adopt. If more than one methodology, of course, is available to determine the same parameter. Why I'm presenting this? Because we would like to do the same for the SOPs on soil biological parameters. So this is an overview of the process I just went through. These are all the steps, but we want to adapt it because we want to harmonize SOPs on soil biological parameters together with colleagues from NETSOB. But there's an issue because what we faced last year, as Miriam Mostinelli mentioned already, because we have few experts on the topic on soil biological parameters, and there are not many laboratories performing such procedures, we experience a delay in the harmonization process to such an extent that we found out that such procedure, the one I just presented you, was not applicable to some SOPs because we don't have enough inputs to harmonize the metrics on the regional and a global basis. Therefore, we were thinking about new ways to harmonize SOPs, especially for soil biological parameters. Therefore, we were thinking about a proposal for you, members of this joint working group, that is to review the way GLOSOLAN harmonize SOPs. So we will decide together. So members of this joint working group, so experts of GLOSOLAN and NETSOB, so all of you present today and those who are not present today, but registering this working group, we will decide together which SOPs we will work on annually, based on the proposal received by both colleagues in the Global Soil Laboratory Network and members of the International Network on Soil Biodiversity. So according to both requests, we will decide which SOPs we will work on every year. So both, of course, the parameter and the methodology for each parameter. We will establish a working group. So experts from all regions, hopefully, from both networks will make up the working groups, one working group for each SOP. Then the proposal is that instead of developing the matrix, we will develop a text, directly the text. The working group will work on the text of the procedure, even starting by already published SOPs. And this is linked to the following presentations on the SOPs already published on meso and macrofauna. So meaning that the working group can rely on already published SOPs to be modified by the members of the GLOSOLAN-NETSOB according to their experience and to achieve a global harmonized SOP. Instead of sharing the metrics, we will share the text with also laboratories that are members of GLOSOLAN and with members of NETSOB as well. So we will not perform anymore the regional and the global harmonization because we will collect the inputs from all regions regarding the text of the procedure. So we basically skip the part about the metrics. We will review the text, we will publish the SOP, and the following steps are the same. So we publish the information on the sustainability of methods, and we will try to translate the SOPs in multiple languages. So this is the new, say, workflow in terms of on how the SOPs on soil biological parameters may be harmonized by this working group. So this is the first proposal. I would like to hear from you if you agree with this proposal before going on. If there is any comments on this, if you think something should be revised, or if you agree with this kind of proposal. So again, all members of this joint working group will decide annually, and we will do also today, of course, which parameters we will harmonize every year. We will establish the working groups, and we will develop the text of the procedures that will be then shared with GLOSOLAN and NETSOB members to be reviewed and then published. I'm having a look at the chat to see if there is any comment about this. If you agree or disagree, please let us know. I see, George, you raised your hand.
Yes, Filippo, thank you. This sounds more reasonable and more applicable, particularly for parameters that are difficult to harmonize in the sense of an interlaboratorial test, for instance, expecting to have the same results from different soils, or sending samples across the world with a determined number of individuals of something, and all the difficulties associated with this kind of interlaboratorial test, which is really quite difficult to do with live organisms. It's easier to do with a chemistry sample, but soil chemical sample, but not with live organisms. So I think this is much more doable. Just give us an indication of what do you mean by the harmonization process when it comes to this Excel sheet and this across the different countries. Is this the proposal for instance, of a particular method, and then the people across the world say, oh, this is how much soil we use, this is the size of the sample you use, this is the time that we used to do this, for instance, if it's a Berlesi or whatever, and the number of days or the amount of soil. Is that what you mean across the world? Or what do you mean really by this harmonization process, please?
Yeah, basically, thanks a lot, George. For the normally what we do in GLOSOLAN is indeed we try to collect information on all steps. So amount of soils used, amount of reagents, the kind of reagents, and we collect this information really about the procedures that are already adopted by all laboratories. We compare them, basically try to find what are the most used, most adopted procedures in each region, and then we compare each region in order to find out what is the most commonly adopted procedure for each step. So the steps of the final procedures will mirror what is the most adopted step for each part of the procedure. But this was done for the chemical and physical parameters of soils. For as we have less labs performing soil biological parameters, proceeding with the metrics can be, as I mentioned, not the best idea, because we cannot reach the consensus, we cannot build the matrix properly. Therefore, the idea is to prepare the working group to prepare a text, so really the procedure, and this text is shared for review, basically. So this will be the procedure that we will use to harmonize the SOP on soil biological parameters analysis. Once these are published, this will be made available on NetSob, on GLOSOLAN website, on the GSP website. And of course, it's not mandatory to perform them, but we highly invite laboratories to adopt these parameters, because adopting the same procedures makes the comparability of results easier, basically.
Okay, just a sub question regarding the sharing the text with the soil labs worldwide. As you said, the number of soil labs doing this sort of thing worldwide is restricted. Will you be incorporating, or will you be inviting, or how do you foresee increasing the number of soil labs within GLOSOLAN, or adopting labs that are dedicated mostly just to soil biodiversity or soil biological parameter analysis, and not, particularly the soil chemistry or physics, or not part of that other group, in order to have this sharing of the text, and which soils labs, what is the universe that you're talking about when you're referring to that?
Yeah, well, first, let's take into account that let's assume that all the people in this joint working group we just established between NetSob and GLOSOLAN are really those experts, especially from GLOSOLAN, that who deals with soil biological parameters. So people from the labs that already know how to perform these, have experience on how to perform these kind of parameters. So we will firstly rely on these experts, and of course experts of NetSob that have experience in soil analysis, analysis of soil biological parameters. And this is why the working group the idea is that the working group will already achieve the almost finalized document, the almost finalized product, because will be already the text that the working group will produce will be already the result of the discussion among experts from different regions, from different having different backgrounds, because we will be people from NETSOB and people from GLOSOLAN. Then this product, even of course we cannot publish it because we have to first undergo the review of both networks. So we will share among all laboratories of GLOSOLAN, asking those who perform soil biological parameters, of course those who have experience in that, to review the text. The point is that once published, these SOPs, we hope that will be used and as a way, as a tool to allow laboratories to start performing these parameters, because many of them do not have a clear overview on what is needed to perform these procedures in terms of equipment, in terms of reagents, in terms of know-how. So these SOPs will provide also information on what is needed to perform these procedures. And so this document will be also, I hope, and we hope all will be used by laboratories to start performing these parameters. And we hope that so more laboratories will perform soil biological analysis. These are, of course, according to the SOPs, we will decide to harmonize. I don't know if this answers your question.
Yes, thank you. There's one issue that comes with the reply you just gave, and is how do these laboratories of GLOSOLAN get the training they need in order to start working on something they've never worked on before. So this is something which in some moment in time, maybe not right now, but it will have to be discussed and raised. And then how will that be done? I don't think it will be feasible to think of only having them watch videos, but they will actually have to undergo training programs somewhere with experts to actually get their hands dirty in a sense and go through the whole method so that they can then implement it back in their own laboratories.
Yeah, thanks.
We can leave that for a different moment of time of discussion, but that needs to go in the planning process as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that in this, let's say, preliminary stage of activities, we can think about starting by the SOPs and videos is a good base. But indeed, what you said is true. We know that labs needs to, as you mentioned, to do dance, no, to have experts go in the lab or to assist, to be present in live training. This, of course, was very challenging in the last 2 years. But hopefully we will be able to implement some kind of trainings, at least in some regions. We can think about writing a project about that to send experts in different regions to train laboratories. We can set up a exchange program. These are all activities we can come later in the capacity building areas of work of this joint working group, but also in the areas of work of GLOSOLAN and NETSOB. I mean, GLOSOLAN, we work a lot on capacity building, and in some regions we implement, for instance, TCP projects, and we send experts to the labs to train lab staff members, and this is normally done on chemical and physical parameters, and hopefully will be start also taking into account biological parameters. But of course we need documents to rely on. So SOPs are really, I think, the first step towards a deeper and most effective training, hopefully in person.
Thanks, Filippo.
Thanks to you. So this is the first proposal. I don't see any comment in the chat against this. So this is the workflow we will try to adopt to publish these SOPs, to work on this SOP. And okay, as I mentioned, we have a template for reporting the SOPs, but another proposal was to slightly modify this template in order to take into account sample collection and sample storage, which I think are key steps in the analysis of soil biological parameters. So we have to make sure that samples that will be used to determine soil biological parameters are properly collected and stored. So the idea is to provide this information as well within the templates, within the template of the standard operating procedure, so the table of contents. And as I mentioned, later we will discuss about which SOPs to harmonize this year. These are the proposals that we collect during the regional and regional networks meetings and the GLOSOLAN meeting in November. So GLOSOLAN members asked to work on these three parameters, which I think are all included within the area of work of microbes. So nitrifying bacteria, microbial population identification, and DNA extraction. But as Rosa mentioned, we lack proposal on micro, meso, and macrofauna. So we should really take this into account, because we have international manuals and protocols that mention these indicators, these parameters as indicators of soil health, of sustainable soil management. So we should try to work also on that. But before talking about which SOPs we will harmonize this year, I would like to give the floor to Miriam Ostinelli, the chair of GLOSOLAN, who will briefly talk about the SOPs GLOSOLAN worked on last year on soil biological parameters. So Miriam, over to you.
Yes, Filippo, thank you. I'm sharing. Can you see my?
Yes.
I don't know if you are.
Can you see? Can you
the
display
PPT or my?
Not a PPT, but can you put in presentation mode?
Well.
Yes.
There?
Yeah, perfect.
Well, thank you. As Filippo said, I'm going to present the SOP that we were harmonizing during 2021. For 2021, it was proposed to harmonize these three protocols: soil respiration rate, carbon of microbial biomass. Actually, nitrogen was also proposed, but only information on carbon was recovered in the matrix. So I put there only carbon. And the last, some enzymes, we work began with beta glucosidase and aryl sulfatase activity. Then Filippo is going to tell you about this SOP in more detail. As Filippo explained in great detail above, usually in GLOSOLAN, the first step in developing an SOP has been to create a matrix like this one. This matrix is about enzymes activity. To the labs retrieve information about the different stage and characteristics of the methods. This matrix is sent to the laboratories so that they report on the methods they use, and then the colleagues in the writing group summarize the information from all the region sent. In this SOP, we have some problems because we don't have a great critical mass. So we don't have a lot of information, only an example as I can show here. About the microbial biomass, carbon in this case. In this slide, I show you the summary of the information we obtained about these protocols. There are all the parameters that we were considering. As you can see, only information was recovered to quantify carbon. You have the details on the pre-treatment, what should be done to the sample, how the fumigation is done, the mass of soil used for the analysis, the volume of ethanol-free chloroform used, also the details of the extraction, the amount of soil being extracted, details of the agitator, the shaker, the shaker, time. Well, all details you can see in this matrix. This is the summary that the information the laboratories sent to the working group what was working in this SOP. Then with that information, as Filippo said, we digamos, following a template that we elaborate at the beginning of the task, the SOP is developed. The template has all these items. As Filippo said, we need to modify this to biological methods. And the SOP is elaborate developing each one of the items of the template in this way. Of course, here I summarize the information and left only the essential information. The SOP has have a brief introduction, the scope and field of application, the principles, device, material, regions, aspects related to health and safety that must be taken into account when implementing the SOP, the preparation of the sample. Here we need to do some modification. I don't know. This working group have a decision. And finally, we reflect the procedures, the controls, and the reference of documents. As you can see, of the 3 SOP that we began to develop during 2021, the most advanced is the soil respiration rate, because it is the most used in the labs of GLOSOLAN and where we have a more important critical mass. In the carbon of the microbial biomass, we have some answer, but in the case of enzymatic activity, despite the fact that there was a demand to harmonize this protocol, we only have the support of colleagues from Brazil from Embrapa, who started working on the matrix. Well, we hope that if this group you are interested in, we can count on your support to finish developing. I think is that we are work at 2021, but as you can see, we can finish the work. So we hope that this group can support us in finish that. Thank you.
Miriam,
Yes.
for this overview. Thanks a lot. And let me stress again. So basically, GLOSOLAN last year worked on 3 SOPs for soil biological parameters. that were presented by Miriam now. These are soil respiration rate that is almost finalized, will be published soon. But indeed, we can share with NETSOB prior publication for a final review with this working group. The one on microbial biomass also is going on. We hope to finalize it soon. And the one on microbial enzyme activity needs, we need more work, more support on that. And that is why basically this working group was established. We experienced with that SOP, the one on microbial enzyme activities, that we need more experts, because those in GLOSOLAN were not enough in numbers to work on that SOP, even if they request on that. Therefore, we ask colleagues from Embrapa to, especially I want to thank IEDA, as Miriam mentioned, that work on that. So we will follow the workflow I presented to you in the previous slides. So we will prepare the text of the SOPs and we will share for review with this working group. So this is also one of the mission of this working group, to review the SOPs that GLOSOLAN worked on in last year, in addition to decide on which ones we will work on in 2022. So I'm looking at the chat. I don't know if there are questions on what Miriam presented. Otherwise, we can proceed and give the words to, there are two colleagues from Italy and France who will present SOPs that they worked on meso and macrofauna. I will first give the word to Mrs. Cristina Menta from University of Parma, who will present us, if I'm correct, an SOP to measure mesofauna, if I'm right.
Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon and good evening. I share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we see the Zoom.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Okay, can you see my
Perfect.
presentation?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Okay, thank you to the organizer for this invitation to participate in this meeting, and in particular to give me the opportunity to introduce a soil quality index developed by Parma University and based on soil microarthropods. As Rosa said, we can divide the soil fauna in 3 or 4 categories in relation to body size, length or diameter. It depends on what we have to consider. And in the mesofauna group are comprised many microarthropods on which this index, the QBSR, is based, such as, for example, sprinters, mice, myriapods, or spiders, and others. And as we know, in agricultural ecosystems, we can highlight some practices that improve soil microarthropod diversity, and vice versa, some others that affect soil living community negatively. Applying sustainable soil management, we can act on the factor that drives soil microarthropod distribution. And for example, in this study that we carried out in north of Italy, we evaluated soil arthropod data in 2 farms, comparing conventional agriculture, in particular tillage, and conservation agriculture with no tillage and the use of cover crops. And when we focus on specific groups, we can obtain different indications in relation to the sensitivity of group. The first chart refers to the mice abundance, the acari, shows a higher value in conservation agriculture compared to conventional for many crops. But for the collembola, the results are not so clear, so evident, showing that the 2 groups give us a different information on the impact of the 2 types of management. And now let me introduce the QBSR index, that is a synthetic index based on soil microarthropods. It is based on the concept that in a soil characterized by a good health and in general good quality, in terms of organic matter, or structure or rhizosphere, we can find more microarthropods adapted to soil. And the vulnerability of these animals in relation to their adaptation level of soil is the key concept on which this index is based. And the soil perturbation doesn't allow the survival of these animals, obviously, in the soil. And the QBS-R, based on microarthropods, has been conceived and developed by Professor Vittorio Parisi from Parma University, that now is retired, and the index is conceived more than 20 years ago. And the first publication dates to 2001 in Italian, and the first publication in English was in 2005. Since that date, many studies have used the QBS-R and published the data. And to date, more or less 100 papers have been published reporting the application of this index. Briefly, the QBS-R is based on microarthropod community, separating using the ecomorphological approach, the EMI approach. As you can see in this table, some groups reported only one EMI, ecomorphological index, for example, 1 corresponding to no adaptation, or 5 or 10 intermediate adaptation, or 20 corresponding to total adaptation. And some example can be Protura or Diplura and others. But other groups, as you can see in the table, show a range. For example, 1.5, 1.10, 1.20, in particular for Collembola. And this is due to the fact that these groups show species in the group with different adaptation to soil. 1 obviously corresponds to no adaptation and 20 total adaptation. And the QBS is obtained by the sum of the EMI score, considering only the highest EMI score of each group. This aspect is really, really important. And for the groups that show an EMI range, obviously the protocol gives indication, information to assign the correct score. For example, for Collembola in the slide, Collembola is a group with a high number of species with a different adaptation level to soil from 1 to 20. And obviously the protocol details how assign the correct EMI score. And the same is for the other groups, having a range of EMI score, as you can see in this table. So for the QBS application, the application of this index includes 3 main phases. The first one is the soil sampling. The collection of 3 soil cores at 10 more or less 10 meters in distance. The second one is the microarthropod extraction, using generally the Verlese-Tulgren funnel, but you can use other systems. And the third one is the taxa determination using astereomicroscope, the EMI attribution, the correct EMI attribution, and the QBS-R computation, and as the sum of highest EMI score of each group. The taxa determination is simple because this index considers order level for all arthropods except myriapods, where the index considers a class level. So if we consider the strengths, the weakness of the index, we can highlight in particular that this index is generally robust, cheap, and in our opinion, easy to learn and apply due to the high taxonomic level requested. But on the other hand, it doesn't consider species level and specimens abundances. And in some cases, this data can be really useful to discriminate between practices or between managements. Moreover, quality classes should be well defined in our opinion, and we need to harmonize the data and adapt this index for the different climatic regions. 4 years ago, we tried to take stock of the situation on the application of the QBS index at international scale, and for this purpose, we collected more 40 international papers published in which QBS-R was applied. And we identified 8 categories considering land uses in particular. And we noticed that agricultural land and the soil affected by degradation show the lowest QBSR values, while, for example, grassland, orchard, and wood highlighted the highest index value. So in this figure, you can see really briefly the data that we collected in 15 years of the QBSR application for Parma University. And this box plot confirms that arable crops are the lowest QBSR, and within them, corn or, for example, soybean or tomato show the worst condition. QBS highlights the good condition of, for example, grassland or alfalfa. And one of the greatest needs of the application of this index is the creation of quality classes in order to represent soil biological quality using categories. Biodiversity Alliance, in collaboration with Timesis and Parma University, identified 7 classes divided by land uses. And in this slide, you can see an example of quality classes application in Trentino region in north of Italy. Here we have the percentage of orchards, more than 100, more or less 100 studied, that belong to the 7 classes before and after the application of conservation practices, such as, for example, tillage, less compaction, or soil cover with the grass. Obviously, the study is in progress, and other samples will be taken in 2022, and it's possible in next years. So, considering the consistent number of studies in which the QBS was applied, we decided to find a working group inside the Italian Society of Soil Science with the aims to guarantee the correct application of the QBS and collect people that are applying index and create synergies among them, and develop a more standardized application protocol and organize training and produce a national and international database. The participants have the possibility to consult over 100 papers, obtain, for example, guidelines or check photos on our website. And we organize the 5 meetings, and we are going to have the next meeting in April. We organized in 8 sub-working groups, each of which has a specific tasks, such as, for example, standardization or project proposal, website management, and so on. And the participation of the working group is absolutely free. So just my last slide, I want to just introduce briefly a monitoring project that we are being carried out for many years in the Emilia-Romagna region that aims to monitor the chemical, physical, and biological characteristics of regional soils, including QBSR, in relation to soil type. We are monitoring more or less 100 sites of agricultural ecosystems, and the project continues in the coming years. Moreover, the QBS has been included in several national and international projects, including some Horizon projects. I conclude my presentation, and thank you very much for your attention.
Yes. Menta, thanks a lot for your nice presentation. I see positive feedbacks from the chat. I kindly ask you, if possible, to share your email. I see your email address is in the slide. If you can write it also in the chat, so in case of questions, people can contact you. Or I don't know if anyone has questions here. You can raise your hand and write in the chat. But again, this is an example of an SOP that was developed by the University of Parma that can be used as a base to develop an SOP by this working group. As I mentioned, we can rely on already harmonized SOPs adapted in terms of harmonized to the global context and publish the document. So this is just an example. Thanks again, Cristina,
Can you
for your
help
nice
me
presentation.
to doesn't share the screen because I didn't find the button for.
Okay, I will.
Okay,
I will put
perfect.
it. Okay.
Thank you very much.
I see. I see. Thanks. I see Rosa put your email address in the chat. So colleagues, if you're interested, you can contact Cristina Menta at the email address that Rosa put in the chat. And now I would give the floor to Patrick Lavelle from the Université Paris-Sorbonne. Hello, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Yes, I'm an emeritus professor at the Sorbonne University, but living now in Colombia. Okay, so I'm going to present something on soil macrofauna. I think what Cristina just presented us is really a great work, and so what I'm going to present is something similar, but on soil macrofauna, and show you that we have lots of data, experience, and field experience, and work with farmers, you see. So 5 reasons why to use macrofauna as an indicator of soil quality. First, it's a very abundant and diverse community, you see. Macrofauna is very easy to see and sample because it's visible at the naked eye. In any site everywhere in the world, except in the Arctic and the highest mountains, you will find 16 orders, more than 50 families, and 400 species. So it's very diverse. And it also has a very high functional diversity, because you have 2 main functions here. One is the fauna that composts the organic matter, and the other one, the ecosystem engineers that build soil porosity and aggregation. They are very abundant, and in our database of more than 5,000 sites, we find that on average you will find more than 700 individuals per square meter, and something like 5 orders. So it's something that is abundant and easy to see. Next thing, it's also simple to evaluate, because all our studies show that orders are the recommended level of resolution. So orders is something that that anybody can identify. Second, it's a very easy and cheap standard methodology, which has been accepted as a standard by ISO. So what we do is take a sample of 25 or 25 centimeters down to 30 centimeters, but most often with 10 centimeters, it's in, you see. And so there are lots of papers that have been published, and student degrees and on this, using this method, because it's very easy to apply, it's very cheap. And also there is lots of background in data. So I indicate here a video that has been done that shows all the detail of this method. It's on YouTube. The other aspect is that when you do this type of work, you do the separation of the fauna in situ. And it's an occasion to share knowledge with local communities, and you will not be surprised that farmers know a lot of on soil macroinvertebrates. So I show two examples here: one in Amazonia, the other one in China, and we have 1,000 sites have been studied like that. Third, it's highly sensitive to soil and plant cover condition. So we have a paper in press now in these days in Global Ecology and Biogeography, where we analyze 5,000 sites. And see this figure, you see, for example, in tropical areas, you see that the effect of cropping, you see, tropical annual crops as compared to natural systems have less than 50% less abundance, and it also showed the value of having trees in the cropping sites. So we have lots of data like that. You see, we have a worldwide database in free access for comparisons. So this database covers more than 5,000 sites in 49 countries. It covers a wide range of plant cover, altitude, latitude, and soil conditions. It's in direct access in Dryad. And this work is further developed now with SDIV project that is led by Jérôme Mathieu from my university. So it's quite a dynamic scientific activity. 5, there are indicator taxa that can be used by farmers to evaluate ecosystem services. For us, it's the best reason why to use this method. Early indicators means that when you change the soil management option, the first thing that will change is soil fauna. It may be also the mesofauna, but the macrofauna, you can see it, you see, and farmers know it. And they change much before physical parameters change, and much more before chemical parameters change. So this is why they are very important indicators. So we have developed the global indicators of macrofauna that is based on PCA analysis. So PCA analysis gives us 3 types of parameters, which are the respective weights of PCA factors, correlations between variables and factors, and coordinates of points. So combining all these elements, we come to a formula that we found out is applicable everywhere in the world. It's been a great surprise even to us, you see. But this formula can give you a value between 0.1 and 1 of the development and diversity of a macrofauna community. So this is an example of a study we did here in Colombia, where you see that the value of this indicator changes with improved pastures a bit better than the native savanna, but much better than the annual crops that you have in red on the right hand. And also in the same study and in a few other studies, we found that this indicator is highly correlated with a set of other indicators measured with the same logics, which measure much more complicated aspects of soil functioning, like aggregate morphology or carbon sequestration. So, and finally, I think the most interesting thing is that we can develop tools with farmers. You see in this table on the left hand, every time you have a green square, it means that our identification of scientific indicators based on the INVAL methodology came to the same conclusion as farmers' knowledge. This was a very early and work that was done, and there is much scope here, because behind this kind of work, we could really develop a normative tool that farmers could use to measure their production of ecosystem services. Well, thank you very much. That's all.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. Was really interesting to see the work you've done, especially this application with the farmers. I can ask you, if possible, to share your email address in the chat.
Yeah.
So if people wants to contact you, they may have some questions for you or whatever. Thanks a lot. Very interesting. Again, I'm really happy about these two presentations because this is an example on the parameters we can include in the SOP's work plan of this joint working group. So because now we should talk about brainstorm basically on which SOPs we should harmonize in this year. So I would like to open the discussion now to start collecting inputs from all of you, members of this joint working group. So you are from both GLOSOLAN and NETSOB, to decide together which SOPs, which soil biological parameters we should harmonize in 2022. Take into account that we already harmonize soil respiration rate and microbial biomass, while microbes enzymes activity we will be finalized soon, hopefully. And we should try to work also on fauna, meaning that as Rosa mentioned, we have maybe 4 main areas of work within this joint working group. So we have microbes, microfauna, mesofauna, and macrofauna. We should try to find, in my opinion, a parameter from at least one parameter for each of these areas of work to be harmonized. But this is just my point of view. I would like to hear from you. So I invite all of you to, or at least who wants to share his or her opinion, to take the floor by raise your hand or write in the chat your feelings. I don't know if George or Rosa, what do you think about this? Miriam as well. I mean,
Yes, Filippo, may I?
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking, as we mentioned already, I think for meso and macrofauna, we should start proposing these two very nice methods, the QSBR for mesofauna and the TSBF for macrofauna. As Christina and Patrick mentioned already, are very, not very, I'm not simplifying, but are like simple methods that are easy to apply. In the case of mesofauna, there's like a strong working group about of course, the QSBR method, the QSBR working group, I don't remember the exact name. And I think this will be very important in order to scale up this method at a global level. I think we can find the way to include them in some discussions, because they will have, as Christina mentioned, already they will have a next meeting on April, which I will participate, and also I think George can join. And also it's important to consider the issue about the orders, right? Because she mentioned that we can like classify or distinguish the orders. It's not necessary to go into detail to determine a species, and I think that's another added value. And regarding the TSBF method of macrofauna, as Patrick mentioned, we can, distinguish using our hands and eyes, without a microscope. And also we can find everywhere, and yeah, also we have data or I mean, for this method from around the world. And yeah, I think for that reason are very, very valuable methods. And if, I mean, the attendants or members agree, we can define at least these two methods for meso and macrofauna. I don't know, George, Patrick, Christina, I don't know if you want to add something regarding this. Thank you, Philip.
Thanks a lot, Rosa, for your proposal. And personally, I agree with that. But let's see if the other members agree. So again, the proposal is to include in our work plan, so to work on the harmonization of these two methodologies. As you know, these are already been published and adopted as they presented. The work will concern the, let's say, the adoption of this method, the adaptation of this method to the template, the structure of the GLOSOLAN SOPs, and can be, of course, even slightly changed according to the application, because these SOPs are supposed to be used worldwide. So, for instance, we can try to slightly adapt them. And I'm reading in the chat that they're asking, highlighting the importance to link with farmers and provide them with tools. And indeed, regarding this, let me tell you that we agreed to include in the GLOSOLAN SOPs, so in this one on soil biological parameters as well, information on the reference values, meaning that each SOPs will have a section with reference values that will allow farmers or other users to kind of interpret the results that we'll get from the labs. So meaning that values from 0 to 1 refers to this, 1 to 2, and so on. Let's see if there is any comment on this. Again, the question is, you agree with working on the two SOPs that have been presented by Christina and Patrick?
Well, I couldn't agree more. You see, I think it's very important to develop these tools and work with farmers. You see, because for me it has been the most important outcome of our work. You see, really sharing knowledge with farmers, and it has really incredible effects on the way people do soil management, much more than one could imagine. So I think the two SOP really are very welcome here. Thank you.
And indeed, our goal is to bridge fill all the gaps. So between laboratories and universities, research centers, and farmers, manufacturers of soil laboratories, and staff members, and this will be indeed a good chance to do that. George?
Yes, thank you. I agree that I think these, because they already have been developed and they're already being proposed for the SSMs and that sort of thing, they've already been reviewed by a few other people. I do have a question though for Christina regarding how much data or if there's any perceived difficulty or variation of applying this QBS-AR in tropical countries with very high diversity of some of these organisms, and what amount of data is available, for instance, from countries like Indonesia or Brazil or Colombia or other places like that, where you can actually say, okay, yeah, we have experience and it's worked well also, just to satisfy my curiosity, please. Thanks.
Thanks, George, for your question. It's a problem because for the QBS, we have more data about the Mediterranean area, and for Italy, for France, for Spain, and so on, in Europe in particular, but for a tropical environment, we don't have enough data. And I think that this opportunity with the collaboration with the SOB and the FAO in particular, it could be a good idea, a good opportunity to improve our knowledge about the QBSR. We need to improve knowledge, but before we need to standardize not the method, but the application of the method. Because when I collected the 40 papers in the past, I understood that different research centers applied the QBS in a different ways. Yeah, and it was a really big problem, because I realized, for example, in a country, that the application of the QBS was completely wrong. Now with our working group, we are working on this problem with the working group in the CSense Society of Italian Society of Soil, to eliminate this problem that, in our opinion, is really important. We are writing a protocol in Italian and English to obtain the application, the same application in all countries. But we need to work on this problem. I agree with you. This is a problem that we have to solve in a brief time, this problem, and we are solving this problem with the working group in which we are working together.
For your answer, I think that answered the point raised by George. I don't see any reply from him, so I guess so. Rosa, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Filippo. Yeah, a part of this of those methods, I was thinking if the members of this network, the participants, can propose at least one. Filippo, what do you think? One method for microfauna, because I'm a bit worried about it, and also another one, I don't know, for microbes, or it's enough for now, because we start already with the harmonization of the enzymatic part, the microbial biomass, and respiration rate. I don't know. I was wondering that. And yeah, please feel free to raise your hands and propose methods, and tell us if you approve both methods for meso and macrofauna, because yeah, it's really important for us to define the methods. Thank you.
But indeed, that would be nice. And I see there is Mesfin Gebre Mikhail with the hand up.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm Mesfin Gebre Mikhail, currently working for Aarhus University in Denmark. Thank you for all the presentation, and I think I agree. I support also the proposed methods on macro and mesofauna. But regarding the enzymatic activity part, I would like to suggest dehydrogenase enzyme as to be developed by this group, because most of the other enzymes are what we call these extracellular enzymes, and activity can be affected by many physical factors, and it doesn't necessarily represent to current biological activity. But this dehydrogenase is considered as a general indicator for microbial activity in the soil. So I would like to suggest to develop SOPs for dehydrogenase. Thank you.
Thanks for your suggestions. Okay, can you write it in the chat, because I'm afraid to write the name of the enzymes wrongly. Let me also share this Excel file. Do you see the Excel file I'm sharing?
Yes, Filippo.
Yeah, so maybe we can work on the same document.
You zoom in, yeah, a bit
Yeah,
more
okay.
because we cannot distinguish. Okay.
So we already work on, I mean, we are currently working on microbial enzyme activities. And the enzymes that we targeted, thanks to the suggestion from colleagues from Embrapa Brazil, are beta-glucosidase and aryl sulfatase. And now Mesfin would like to propose to add this one as well. Do you all agree? What do you think about that? I don't know if Yeda is here. Maybe she may also take the floor because she proposed these two enzymes. So what do you think about adding also this one within the SOP?
And Filippo, could you include a column with the leader of the SOPs or the specific SOPs? And I don't know if you want to explain the role of this person, of the lead person, because yeah, I think it's important to mention it.
Yeah, basically now for each, we will ask you, this is why we ask you to specify what is your main area of expertise, because this, we will contact, let's say, areas of work. We will divide you into these areas of work, so microbes, microfauna, mesofauna, and macrofauna. We will, after this meeting, we will contact you by these working groups in order to follow up with the activity of SOP harmonization and other activities that we will talk about. But first, we should decide which SOPs we should work on. And for each SOPs, we should identify a global leader, meaning that someone that will help us, so me, Rosa, Lucrezia, George, and so with harmonizing this methodology. What does it mean? That people in this working group, so the people that we will work on the harmonization of these procedures, will basically review the text, prepare the text, and finalize the text of the procedures and send it to GLOSOLAN members, to NETSOB members for review before publication. And the working group leader is the one that is maybe basically coordinating this activity. So Ms. Finn, you still have your hand up. I don't know if you want to add something or this was from before. Okay, it's off. So let me just organize better this.
Filippo?
Yeah.
Yeah, for example, Paolo Di Leonardo is saying that, or mentioning microbial biomass, but it's important to mention that we already developed this this protocol for, as Miriam Ostinelli mentioned, the GLOSOLAN chair. We are currently working with carbon, and it's supposed to include, I mean, soon nitrogen, right, Filippo?
Yes, so these are the SOPs we work on already. Oh, sorry.
And also nitrogen mineralization in microbes. I don't know if you want to include it or.
Give a better review. These are the parameters we already harmonized. So
exactly.
I don't know if Paolo was referring to a new element to target.
Yes, because that actually can include both a bit characterization of the microbial community and the microbial biomass, because I still think that actually the microbial biomass measured with the fumigation method might be not the best, because it really gives a lot of problems. And actually, if you use PLFA, you have both functional group determination, but also you can determine the microbial biomass carbon. So that's why, yeah. But yeah, this is a discussion I think was something that I mentioned also before, but then I think the majority wanted to continue with the fumigation. I'm fine with that, but I still would like to see the results first, because I think
we can work on both, for instance.
Yeah, the reproducibility, at least what you experience here in Wageningen of the fumigation method, is very low on same sample. So I'm really curious to see if you do something wrong, or yeah.
Which methodology were you proposing for microbiome?
PLFA.
With PLFA, that is still quite used. PLFA.
PLFA.
Yes.
A,
Okay.
no, A at the end, Filippo, A.
Ah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, as I mentioned, we can harmonize, of course, different methodologies for the same parameters. And this would be very even nice because we can develop transfer functions between methodologies to allow the comparison of data between laboratories, countries, and regions. And we can also provide more than one option for labs so they can then assess which methodologies they prefer. So this one, we are almost done with this, but this year we can work on this. Why not? I mean, we can propose a new methodology to target the same parameters. So these are, was it another proposal? Rosa, help me with the chat because
Yes.
I don't see it very well.
Yeah, for the same microbes, we have a nitrogen mineralization. I don't know if Bernard Bosman wants to detail about the method per se, no? Because we don't know about the methods. Yeah, Pilar Andres was mentioning about microfauna, but we need to suggest one method for that. And yeah, I think that's it. If
Maybe some of those, Bernard Bosman want to take the floor and explain the
perfect.
This proposal. Maybe Rosa, in the meantime, can you write in the chat the name of the index for the meso and macrofauna that was presented, so we'll write them here.
Yeah, mesofauna, Filippo is QS V.
The QBS.
QBS.
AR, arthropods.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks, Christina. And the one from Patrick?
TSBF.
ESBF.
TSBF. Tropical Soil Biology and Fertility.
Okay.
No, it's sorry, George. It's ISO. TSB.
Ah, yeah, ISO. That's right. ISO.
We made lots of efforts to get it accepted by ISO.
That's right.
Okay, from microfauna, I see there are some in the chat some proposals. I see nematode community analysis at functional level from Roy Nilsson, and as well.
Incubation method.
Okay, from this was, I think, was for nitrogen mineralization, right?
Yeah.
Pilar, you raise your hand. You can take the floor if you want.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
This is because of Rosa has asked about the methods for microfauna. The available methods for protozoans are currently incubation from dilutions, soil dilution plus a short incubation, and most probable number estimates. And for nematodes, where normally use the methods followed by Diana Ward and John Moore for food webs. So wet extraction and classification at the level of food habits. So at trophic groups. So this is the methods that are available and more easy for me to use.
So what is the name? Sorry, so the one is for. So the name of the procedure is the nematodes functional groups, or how can I?
Yeah, because feeding groups are very indicative of feeding groups can be assessed by microscopy. So you can look at the mouth and classify them following trophic groups. And this is very indicative of the state of the soil.
Okay. So
can we say
the most usual system? Yep.
Sorry, can we say incubation?
Nematofunctional groups.
Okay, because you said incubation. If I
No, this is for prots, for protozoa.
Exactly, but can we say incubation for protozoa and
Okay, yeah.
Oh no, and the other for
Incubation
nematodes?
for protozoa and most probable number.
Protozoa, right?
Protozoa.
And for nematodes is
Nematodes is wet extraction. And,
wet extraction. Okay.
Yeah, this is the extraction and classification to functional feeding groups.
So nematodes is like nematodes functional groups by wet extraction.
Yep. You can see trophic groups. This is more correct.
Again, sorry?
Trophic groups.
Trophic.
Okay.
Um,
This is what we have currently. There is no other approach, a part of the taxonomy, and this is not solving anything. This is the most used system.
okay. I see in the chat, thanks a lot, Pilar. I see in the chat, Ray Nilsson mentioned that for nematodes, there is also a new protocol about sequencing. Because we should like to, I see that we are mentioning many methods now. I would like now to collect all the inputs and then we can maybe make a selection. Otherwise, I'm afraid because if we decide to include many parameters, then we will not able to harmonize all of them. Some we can do next year, of course. So, so nematodes, I will include also the one mentioned by Roy. Is there something else? Paolo Di Leonardo, the one you mentioned is still the one mentioned by Roy, or is it a different one in another methodology?
I don't know. Maybe I missed information that Roy shared before. Sorry.
No, I'm not sure if the
Ninja tool, yeah,
is the same.
I guess so, yeah. I see the answer from Roy that he knows it, so might be the same.
I know, Roy. Can you confirm if Ninja is the same as NGS sequencing, or is it different?
No. This is not based on next generation sequencing.
Okay, so it's a different methodology.
Yeah.
Ninja's a website that is basically it's a front end of our script. That once you put data in, it's a fantastic sort of one-stop website to calculate a whole range of nematode-related indices.
Okay, thanks. So I will include this as you propose it. And let me also add here the proposal that we, because we got some proposal from GLOSOLAN as well. Let me just have a look at them. So we'll list them as well. Just a second. Rosa, can you please check if there are any other proposal in the chat so we can include them as well?
Yeah, for microbes, protozoa, we have several ecological methods such as non-fluted Petri disk methods and iDNA metabar coding. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can include it, but I want to know, or I want to hear from you because these methods, I don't know if are expensive or also if needs a specific expertise. I don't know if you deal with this molecular tools, Filippo, for other parameters in chemical or physical, no, but chemical SOPs.
Wait, come again? Wait, I was reading the chat. Can you please come again with your question? Sorry.
Yeah,
Rosa?
because are mentioning about molecular tool, if I understanding well, and I was wondering if you deal with this kind of tools, if it's I mean possible to implement because of I don't know, some cases are more expensive. I was only wondering.
Yeah, of course, we should take into account the feasibility of this proposal. I mean, like, also, we should. I think we should start from those methodologies that are mostly adopted, and those that are also. So for this reason, also those that do not require maybe an advanced setup, because I assume the easiest procedures are those mostly adopted worldwide. But let me.
Yeah, we can include non-fluided Petri. This one that I will.
Yeah, I'm copying that.
Yeah, and the second one, I don't know if Antonietta wants to comment about, but yes, maybe we can start thinking on the first option, and for the second.
Hello.
Yes, thank you, Antonietta.
Yes, I would say simply that, I mean, the no-fluted Petri dish methods is one of the best standards for analysis of protozoa in soil. So, I mean, it's currently used. At the moment, there are very few soil protozoologists, but it's one of the best methods. I mean, is a wet extraction of soil sample, because protists or protozoa in particular, mostly all the time are, in resting form, so in the form of cyst. So just to add water to soil allow them to, to awaken and just to be counted and in case recognized according to different trophic group. The second method obviously is a molecular methods, but this is obviously more expensive. So I agree with you on this aspect. So the no-fluted Petri dish methods, it's easy to perform, just require a simple, Petri dish, just some water, okay, just for the awakening of the resting cyst of protist in soil. Thank you.
Perfect, Antonietta. Thank you so much for your comments. I don't know, Filippo, then we can include this method.
This is one, right? Protozoa by non-fluted Petri dish method, right?
Yeah, but please include it in microbes. Also, I wanted to know from you, especially George, and all of you, because yeah, there was some question regarding the inclusion of protozoa in microbes or microfauna, and I think it's better to be aware about this. This classification, because there was comments against, if I read well in the chat, and I don't know if we should follow this approach or not. I don't know, George, or don't remember which person was writing in the chat.
I was writing, sorry.
Sí, Antonieta, yeah,
because,
please,
yes, because I mean, we can consider that protists are single-celled eukaryote organisms. So from one side, they can be added to microbes in general because they are an important part of the soil microbiome, okay? But on the other side, from a traditional point of view, they belong to the microfauna together with nematodes, probably due to their, considering their predatory behavior, because they are important regulator of the other microbial biomass in terms of fungi and bacteria, okay? So we have to decide if we want to follow the classical nomenclature in which protists are included within the microfauna, or maybe we can move to microbial. I mean, there is no problems at all from this point of view. It depends from us, but we need to to decide from this point of view.
We should just agree for like an internal communication. So we just, among us, we decide if we want to fall it into the working group of microbes on microfauna. As I think we have more expert on microbes, maybe it is more feasible to include that there, because then we have more people who can deal with that. If you agree, Rosa?
I prefer to ask George. I think we already moved to microbes actually, and we included, for example, in the survey, the one for the Global Observatory. Yeah, I don't know what shall we do.
I'm going to refrain from commenting because I'm not a specialist, and I generally tend to put them into microfauna because of more the functional aspect and not the taxonomic. And I think the people who are more into the more modern protistologies will probably not be too happy if we keep them in microfauna. So it's probably best to put them in the microbes, but that's all I will say. And I think it's up to them, the specialists, to decide, and not up to us, the non-specialists, to decide. So
I don't know if Pilar wants to, yeah.
Yes, somebody has written in the chat some time ago that the protists, protozoa, are very strong controller of microbes. From this point of view, I would like to have them with microfauna, because they have a behavior. I always talk from the functional point of view of the soil food webs. So for me, functionally speaking, they are microfauna, no microbes. But well, I'm not going to kill people thinking the opposite. This is my point.
Yes, I also confirm that they are traditionally included into microfauna. So any protistologists know that they are microfauna. So the correct, I would say, place for protist is microfauna.
Okay. For me, that is fine. I mean, like Rosa, if you agree, yeah, we can set protozoa under microfauna, but I mean, again, this is, we not put a perennial stamp about microbes or microfauna on these SOPs. It's just an internal organization for us to check whether these are part of to divide the tasks among the working groups. So I will keep them under microfauna, but then we can now, I mean, we should make a decision on which of these parameters we want to work on, because there are a lot, and we cannot work on all of them this year. But next year, of course, in upcoming years, we can include them in our work plan. So I don't know, how do you want to proceed? By areas, we can start from the easiest. So macrofauna and mesofauna, we have just only one option. I mean, these are the methods that have been presented today by Patrick and Christina. My question is if you all agree to work on these two methodologies. We can check in the chat. You can check, please write in the chat or raise your hand if you want to, if you agree, or especially if you disagree, by including this in our work plan. So to work on these two methodologies for meso and macrofauna.
I agree. I saw. Miriam, please. Miriam.
Sorry, I can see a lot of methods what we are proposing here. But my question is, do we have experts in all these methods that are being proposed in this working group? Could they be leaders to write the SOP? Who will write all this SOP? I am worried because then when we have a lot of SOP, it's hard work to write that. So I think we need to focus in methods we can really write the SOP. It's only a preoccupation.
Oh, you're right, Miriam. Thanks for sharing this. Again, concerns right. I mean, let's do like this. Let's first decide which we can work on, and then we can try to identify the working group leader and members of the working group for each parameter, and hoping to get enough number of experts. Of course, if I'm telling you, if we don't find people who wants to work on the harmonization of these parameters, I mean, writing the procedures, and so we cannot harmonize, we cannot proceed. So let's now start by, as you see, there are many methodologies. Let's start by identifying which ones we want to work on, and then we can identify working group leaders. But if these are not identified, we cannot proceed, basically. So let's see. These first two methods, my understanding is that they are endorsed.
Yes.
So maybe can we already identify who wants to work on these two? I think Patrick and Christina will be involved, of course, but we need other experts to support them in this activity. So if any of you wants to volunteer to work on this, on the preparation on the SOPs, on these two indexes, starting from what they presented, please.
Filippo first, let me complement. Considering these two methods, it's important to mention that we have already the drafts. We have the drafts, and will be easier, sorry, but will be easier for these two methods because, we have the first proposal, and we will start from there. Of course, we need to adjust, as you mentioned, with the template, etc. But we start already. I mean, Patrick and Christina, and will be easier. But yes, it will be very nice if somebody can join. No.
Yeah, indeed. So I'm ready to collect names. If anyone wants to work on these two, so the one on mesofauna and the one on macrofauna. First, I would like to ask Christina and Patrick if they agree to work on that.
Yes, first.
If you confirm
Christine and Patrick.
Thanks, Filippo. I agree.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, definitely, yes, of course.
Okay, thanks. Maybe I will write your names here as members of the working group, then we can identify who will take the lead of that. So I will say Christina, and then here I will put Patrick. I read in the chat that George can help Patrick with the macrofauna, so that's great. Is there someone else who wants to support, especially the one on mesofauna?
Oh, I don't know, Christina, if you want to invite some colleagues from your university or the working group, maybe you can send us the names.
Yes, if it's possible, I would like to invite all the QBSR group.
That will be fantastic.
Yeah. Because in the QBS group, there are many experts in different, not only in the QBSR, but also in different orders. Okay, and in my opinion, it's good to involve not only Italian specialists, but also foreign specialists on QBS application. Okay, I already spoken with some of them in these days. Okay, and we have the meeting in the first part of the April. So with them, we can discuss about this, and after I come back to you with some colleagues that can participate in this working group. Okay.
Perfect. That's great, Christina. Thank you. Then, Filippo, you can write a
I wrote that the members of the index will
working group.
Yeah. So the team that developed the index will join, and also the partners they have worldwide that can join. But again, this is just to identify the people. Then we will follow up with you by email, and maybe we can organize other meetings just with people for each parameter. If someone else wants to join, you're more than welcome. Always welcome. Even if you want to contact us in the upcoming days, we can do it later on. If you want to join later, I would like to move to this one about microbes, microbiome activities, because this is something that for sure we'll work on, because we already start the harmonization process within GLOSOLAN. But as I mentioned, as Miriam mentioned, we stuck because of few expertise, and now we, thanks to support from Embrapa, we are proceeding. But so far we include these two enzymes. The proposal we receive is to include also these other enzymes, the dehydrogenase. I want to ask you if you would agree to include these enzymes as well in the first version of the SOP we will work on. I don't know if colleagues from Embrapa that help us in developing the SOPs like Yeda wants to comment if you agree with that, or other colleagues, more than welcome.
Filippo, hi.
Hello.
Hi, good morning. Hello. I have no problems with dehydrogenase. The thing is that with aerosulfatase and beta-glucosidase, we have more than 20 years of experience, and they really work in terms of being good biological indicators of soil health. So dehydrogenase didn't work quite well for us here, but there is no problem, you know, if the colleague from the other place has a good experience with dehydrogenase, no problem at all. Aerosulfatase and beta-glucosidase, we are very sure about how it works under field conditions all over Brazil, but I don't know much about dehydrogenase, but I don't have any problems with it at all. Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot. Maybe we can ask Ms. Finn if he wants to, because he's the one who proposed to include the hydrogenase. Ms. Finn Gebri, sorry for my pronunciation, Gebri Michael, if he agrees to join Yeda and other people to work on this SOP. Okay, great. So I'm reading the chat he joined. So again, yeah, I will put again your name as you already work with us on that. And I add Ms. Finn. And if someone else wants to work on microbial enzymes activity, to work on these 3 enzymes, more than welcome. And again, let me tell you that all the SOPs we will develop will be living document, meaning that we will publish a version of the SOPs, but every year we may revise, update, and enlarge the SOPs, meaning that we can take into account more enzymes. In this case, for instance, we can start with these 3, but if next year you want to include another enzymes, we can do it. And again, and as Rosa is mentioning in the chat, all these SOPs, once published, will be available on the GSP website for free. We can translate them in different languages, and this is really the power of the the good point of working on these SOPs, because we can then make them available to everyone, to all labs all over the world. So if someone else wants to work on microbial enzyme activities, please write in the chat. Otherwise, I see. Okay, Saed, great. Rosa, how do you think we can proceed? Even I'm asking also to George. Should we go by areas of work, like so finish the microbes part and check which method we should select? Again, I just want to remind that we can keep some other methods for next year, or because we cannot work on all of them together, because according to the experience we got in GLOSOLAN, we cannot, as Miriam mentioned, harmonize all of them, because it can be challenging. So let's focus on those you think are more urgent or most adopted, so we can start by them. Any proposal on which one to harmonize? So we have DNA extraction, microbial population identification, nitrifying bacteria, microbial biomass by PLFA, nitrogen mineralization by incubation method, and DNA meta barcoding analysis.
Filippo, first,
yeah.
Sorry for interrupt you, but the question is how many SOPs
Experts,
you
yeah.
want? Yeah, you want to include for microbes, because we have 3 we are developing 3. This is the new one, no, for enzymes. And I don't know if you are thinking to include 2, 3, 1 more. I don't know. Maybe this is for you, the question, and also to Miriam, no? And based on that, we decide, and then we pass to microfauna.
Yeah, I think that depends on the amount of experts and the people that are available to work as a working group leader and members of the working group. I mean, if we find no one for certain of these SOPs, we cannot proceed. But I would suggest to keep those 2, one of mesofauna, one of macrofauna, and maybe
at least, yeah.
In addition to the one on microbes, microbial enzyme activity, we can keep maybe another 2 on microbes, because there are many people with expertise on that, and maybe 1 or 2 on microfauna, maybe 1 on microfauna. Let's see according to the availability of people and so on. I don't know if someone wants to take the floor. I see Paolo here. Yeah.
Or
yes.
volunteer.
Yes, actually, I think among the one that you just mentioned, I would propose the microbial enzyme, the N mineralization by incubation method. That's something that also in our lab we do. And we did see that actually different storage solutions actually give different results. So it would be nice to test this and maybe to harmonize together with other institutes, which one will be the best way, even starts from the storage and then to the analysis. So if it's possible, I would like to be part of this group.
Nitrogen mineralization, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
With incubation method. Leonardo, without you.
Leonardo, sorry.
No problem.
Someone else wants to take the floor, or wants to work on certain SOPs? I don't know if those who propose these methodologies, I don't remember who proposed nitrogen mineralization, maybe he or she wants to work on this. Who was? Bernard Bosman, you propose nitrogen mineralization. Are you available also to work on that? Okay, you say yes. So I will add Bernard.
And again, Paolo, if you have colleagues who can join and support you in the harmonization of this method, will be great, because you mentioned, right, that you want to.
Yeah, in our lab, yes, we had also like at least a project for a student that they didn't went through, unfortunately. She went back to Greece. But yes, for sure. Yeah, I will ask around and, in our group, and we will see how to increase the number of people.
And also, thank you, Paolo.
No, thank you.
Filippo Mesfin.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Great. Someone else wants to join the working group on nitrogen mineralization? So I see there is a quite a good consensus on this. So I think we can work on this, on nitrogen mineralization also, because as Paolo mentioned, I think is a rather diffuse methodology, especially in the university. Like it's very like, I remember even me, I used when I was in university, so like I think it's a methodology that is widely used, but I don't know if you have any more suggestions. These are more than welcome again. I don't know if you have what do you think about the other proposals we collect?
Miriam wants to.
Okay.
Sorry, one question more. Do you consider it is important to develop an SOP on the pre-treatment and conservation of samples, or do you think it is preferable to include this item in each SOP?
I think it would be better to adapt.
Because I think for some SOP, the pre-treatment, I think is common. In other, I don't know. I am answer to the experts.
No, because we discussed this with George before this meeting, and as I presented, I think it is better to the proposal was to include for each SOP, for each procedure, the guidelines on the sample collection, pre-treat, and storage for each SOP, because it may change for different procedures. But let's see what other things. I think I talked already with George and Rosa, but I want to hear from you. If you, what do you think? What is your idea about that? If you agree to write to include for each SOPs the guidelines on sample pre-treat, collection, even storage, according to the procedure, of course, because if there is no need for a particular sampling, we do not include it, but we just mention where is needed, of course.
Yeah, say each SOP. If you agree, okay.
I think it's better because it can be very SOP specific sometimes, no? Because maybe I can explain to the others. For instance, because in GLOSOLAN for the chemical SOPs, we have a document for the sample pretreatment, which is common, can be adapted, can be used for all the different SOPs for the different parameters. While maybe in this case, we should we cannot prepare such document because it really depends on the technique. So maybe it's better to include it in each SOP.
Well, okay.
If
you agree.
Vale. Antonietta, I don't know if you want to take the floor or you were just agreeing.
Oh, excuse me. So I guess that is important to highlight within the SOP the methodology for the sampling, because it depends, because obviously if I have to collect, protists, for example, or nematodes, okay, so soil is full of small microhabitats, so I have to collect several samples. I have to make some composite soil samples, and then starting from these samples, I can start my, for example, analysis with no fluid or most probable number or something else. But if I have to collect, for example, earthworm, okay, so I have to, have a different amount of soil, I have a different number of replicates, and so on. So I guess that it's really important to add to each SOP, the methodology for the collection and the storage of soil sample until they reach the laboratory, whatever.
Antonietta, this has been well noted. So I had a note here. So each SOP will include information on sampling, storage, and sample pretreatment as needed. So as you mentioned, if, for instance, for nematode, we need a certain procedure for sampling, we will include a section about this in the SOP.
Right.
Is this what you mean? Yeah.
Yes. And also I saw now in the chat regarding the soil depth, this is another critical important aspect because we have to decide, the depth of the soils. So I guess that we can, for example, consider the 10 centimeter, of soil depth.
Yes.
You mean for the sampling, right?
Yes, for the sampling.
Yeah. So I don't know if the other, because for instance, I remember the presentation that Patrick did for this index on microfauna. It was like that method refers to a greater depth, like was 35 centimeters, if I remember well. So maybe, I don't know if we can, maybe it's better to specify the depth of the sampling for each SOP. Because this may change. You see the example that he made that I think was right, but Patrick, your SOP was referring to, your procedure was referring to like 30 or 35 centimeters for soil sampling, right?
Yes, it can go to 30 centimeters, but it can also be 10 centimeters,
okay.
Depending on if you do it the right time of the year and you focus on the top 10 centimeters. But, yeah.
So what do you think, George? Should we set all sampling for all SOPs at 10 centimeters, or we may change by case?
I think that's something that we can discuss within the macrofauna group to decide whether we will stay. Most of the macrofauna, as Patrick says, is in the upper 10 centimeters. This depends on some aspects, which I think we'll decide. That actually the ISO method says 15 centimeters, but we'll discuss this and then we'll get back to you all.
Okay, we can follow up within the working groups then. Thanks. I don't know if there is any other strong proposal on one of these parameters for microbes. Otherwise, we can select one parameters to harmonize within a microfauna group. Look at the chat. Is there someone who wants to work on microfauna, and especially on one of these 5 parameters?
Don't be shy.
Okay, Pilar, which method you want to work on? You see, she said yes, but which SOP?
Sorry, I'm talking from another place. I have to leave immediately, it's too late. But I was thinking about it so let me see, where do we have the animals? So protozoa or nematodes for me are very good. I can work both of them, but I will prefer nematodes because I can discuss with very expert people.
Yeah, that's great, because also I can read in the chat that also Roy Nilsson is saying that he wants to work on nematode. So maybe which of these methodology you want to work on, like trophic groups by wet extraction, or NGS or Ninja? Which method are you referring to? Pilar?
I don't know. I know better the first one. I have proposed these trophic groups.
Okay, Roy, which one you would prefer to work on?
I think as a starting position, I agree that the trophic roots by wet extraction is more globally accessible. So I agree with that.
Maybe we can start. Yeah, thanks. So maybe we can start with this, and maybe next year we can work on some of the other indices that were other parameters that were procedures that were proposed. Is someone else who wants to work on this SOP on nematodes? Please let us know. Or if you want to work on any of the other parameters that were not that are still in white and not highlighted in green. So basically, those in green are those that we decide we most more or less highlighted to be those we want to work on. Do you all agree with that, or is someone who wants to work on one of the parameters that were not already identified? Well, George, Rosa, Miriam, what do you think? I think we are fine with this, no?
Yes.
As a starting point.
Yes.
Totally agree. Finally, Filippo, could you include this method for
Yes.
macrofauna? It's only, I mean, for the future, because we have already enough, but could you include macroaggregation by soil fauna in macrofauna as a new method, and we can develop it next year? Thank you.
The idea, okay, we'll keep these inputs for the next time, for next year. So the idea is that maybe in November we will collect. Now we will work on this. Then in November we will collect inputs and suggestions from GLOSOLAN members, and then I don't know when the NETSOB meeting will going to be. Maybe in December or like around that time of the year.
GLOSOLAN or NETSOB, sorry?
GLOSOLAN is in November. I don't know, NETSOB, when if you already have an idea.
Yeah, November, December.
So this means that in January next year we will have more inputs, and we can consider back all the inputs that we discussed today that were not selected, and even add the new ones, and then make a sound decision on the new SOPs that we can work on next year.
And Filippo, I have a question.
Yes.
Regarding the new SOPs for development. I mean, the idea is to present the first draft in the next GLOSOLAN meeting, or not in such a detail, because
No, hopefully, I mean, like we will discuss soon about the timetable, but I think it is possible that we even harmonize before, because as we don't have to undergo with the matrix, and we have some kind of draft material already, reference material, we may, depending on how long the working group will take to draft the text of the SOP, but maybe we can, I hope to be able to finalize some of these SOPs at least by maybe October, even before, I don't know, let's see. So maybe that we will be able to present them during the GLOSOLAN meeting and NETSOB meeting. I mean, that would be great. I mean, but let's see how in the upcoming weeks and months, how is the work of this working group, if everything goes up smoothly, if we face any issue, let's see.
Perfect, Filippo.
Okay. Maybe, okay, I will save this document, of course, and we will contact people of the working groups to follow up this activity, and we will inform, of course, we will contact also all the members of this working group, all the activity, all the participants of today. So if we will launch a call, if someone wants to join these working groups that have been established today, we will, these will be more than welcome to do it. So I presume that some of the members that were not able to join today, maybe they are interested to join, so maybe we can do it. According to the agenda, we should talk about other activities like capacity building and so, But maybe I would like first to give the floor to George, because I think before it's getting too late, maybe you can proceed with talking a little bit about the timetable of the activities. I just maybe mention very briefly. Yeah, maybe let me just present very briefly what I mean about capacity building. I will just show it you very briefly my presentation, because as George mentioned, we should work also on building the capacity of laboratories to implement these procedures that we will harmonize. Just want to share with you some example from GLOSOLAN, and of course this will be just really the baseline, because as George mentioned, a video is not enough to support and to allow laboratories to implement these procedures. So we will just to give you an idea on the activities we can implement within each areas of work. So if you are an expert on microbes or microfauna, and so in addition to the SOPs we will harmonize and we just discuss about, we can also implement this kind of activities such as webinars, and we implement a lot in 2021 in GLOSOLAN about different topics, so sample preparation, different parameters about chemical parameters of soils, also spectroscopy, quality control, laboratory health and safety. And there was a good participation, and we organized this meeting in different languages, and all materials is available online. So something similar can be implemented also by this working group. For instance, we can build the capacity of the laboratories to implement these parameters. And of course, it's good because we can implement in different languages, so meaning different sessions. This is good, of course, but also is a disadvantage because we have to implement the same topic different times. But we can have an open discussion, meaning that participants can make questions and interact with experts on each procedures to be able to better implement, to overcome issues they're facing in the implementation of certain SOPs. But we can also produce training videos. This, of course, all these activities come later. Once we have defined and we have done with the SOPs, we can start making these products that will allow laboratories in implementing such protocols. And this, of course, short videos with subtitles that can guide laboratories step by step in the implementation of the procedure. But I will not make now the proposal because this is, I think, is something we should discuss within the working groups. But let me now give the floor to George, because I think we're getting very late with the agenda. So maybe we can directly pass to the conclusion. This was just to mention that we can also include more activities in a work plan of this joint working group, like not only harmonization of SOPs, but also activities on capacity building, on raise the awareness on the importance of these parameters, because what we think is that, as we know, not many labs perform these parameters. This is because of the lack of knowledge, but also the lack of maybe of the right importance given to such parameters. So maybe we can also start thinking to prepare some formative material on this. But please, I will now give the floor to George to maybe close the meeting and have an overview maybe on what are the next steps, next phases of this working group.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Filippo, and thanks all of you 27 participants who are hanging on despite our half-hour delay to finish the meeting. So here we go. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I do want to highlight that there are some things that still need to be defined that are very important. So I will just project now, share the screen here. That's what I want to do. Bear with me just a moment as I do this. Can all of you see that now? Yes, can you see that? Okay, great. So there are some things that need to be defined, and I'm not sure, Filippo, you'll have to help me with this. I've made out a few tasks for each of the working subgroups, I've called them. So there's a task of finalizing the present SOPs, the enzymes, and the last ones which you say are already underway. there's the defining which ones are going to be doing in 2023. And then defining the new groups and particularly the members and the leader of these experts who works on these new SOPs, particularly the ones you've just pointed the members, and it's important that the members get together, that they define a leader, and that they establish deadlines and dates for meetings. And this goes basically for all of these working subgroups. So which the expert and the leader for the microfauna, which is basically going to be now the nematode trophic group with wet extraction. So that's probably going to be again in 2022, and then define later on what's going to go for next year, establishing the deadlines and the meetings in order to work on the text of the SOPs and the videos and the training material. The same for the mesofauna. We have the QBSR, AR harmonization, and Christina and some others will then have to define the deadlines and the training material, the additional tests if need to be done from people maybe from the tropics to provide some more of their data, establish the deadlines in the meetings. And the same goes for the macrofauna then. And now the ISO method harmonization, who's going to lead this, who's going to develop then the training materials in the different language, the videos, and the deadlines in the future meetings. So here's a timetable, which Filippo sent, and I've been modifying it as we speak. And as we worked today during the meeting, basically putting up to the beginning of the next semester to finalize the current SOPs, the ones that are presently being worked on. So the 2 enzymes and the CNN, microbial biomass and respiration. And then, of course, the proposal to start off on the other microbial methods that can be simultaneously now, or that can be further on. That's something that needs to be defined. I think the TSBF and the QBSAR methods are already quite well underway. So I think they can be continued to be worked on over this year and possibly finalized by the end of this year. And the same can go on for the nematode trophic groups that can already begin right away. And then I think the actual when it will finish is something that needs to be defined by the sub-working groups. And then, of course, the next methods for that have been proposed can be discussed to start for next year. So we have the need to have some webinars, and Filippo proposed here some dates, some months in which that can be organized, and I think that's important, particularly for some of these more integrated issues. And so I think we need to work on defining some of these dates and defining when people are going to meet. And I think that's something that I think we should probably do now, Filippo, with a proposal, so people can have an idea by when does the GLOSOLAN want some feedback on who the leaders and tentative deadlines and dates for working on each of these proposed SOPs. So I think I'll keep that there. And Filippo, if you want to say anything.
I mean, like this again will depend on the availability of the working groups. I mean, let's see. I think next steps, as you mentioned, is to follow up with the people who express their interest to join these working groups. We'll open it, maybe launch a call among all the other members of the working group to see if they want to join these working groups for the SOPs, and we will guide them and meet with them to proceed with the harmonization. And this is, of course, is depending on how fast is the preparation of the text, how fast is the amount of the reviews we collect from GLOSOLAN and NETSOB members. But I think the framework you show can be feasible. I mean, let's see. And also again about the webinars and the training videos shooting. This, of course, regarding the SOPs we talked today, this will be done once these are finalized and harmonized. But what we can start doing is once the SOPs on soil respiration rate and microbial biomass carbon are done, we can start thinking about that. So with the people in the microbes working group, this will be done. So we can follow up. Basically, I'm happy that we get information on each person today on which areas they want to work with, in which SOPs they want to work with, so we can better follow up, targeting the people according to the main expertise or the topic they want to work on. So that would be great. Okay. So that is great for me, George. Thanks a lot for sharing that. Again, I want to thank everyone for staying with us all these 3 hours. Thanks a lot to Miriam, the chair of GLOSOLAN, and to the people who interact today, especially to Patrick and Christina for sharing the protocols they developed. And Rosa, I don't know if you want to say something to close the meeting, please.
No, Filippo, I think you and George summarized everything. Only to invite, if you can, as I mentioned in the chat, invite more experts in order to strengthen the soil fauna groups, because that's very important. And yeah, thank you very much for your time of this first meeting.
Thank you, Filippo, and thank you, Rosa, and all of you who stayed with us. Have a great day and a great week. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.